There are a few interesting Detroit Pistons articles that were dropped in the community this past week. One of them by James Edwards III of The Athletic, the Detroit Pistons beat writer, and another one by Sean Corp of Detroit Bad Boys. I'm going to be reacting to both of those articles and giving my opinion and responding to the statements in those articles in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Before we get started, I do want to ask you guys this. How would you guys feel about me incorporating 2K, the video game, NBA 2K, into the podcast a little bit? I have some cool ideas, and we're working it out behind the scenes, see if, just how much I'd be able to do with it. But I just want to get you guys' opinion. How would you guys feel about me incorporating NBA 2K into the podcast a little bit? Let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. This is going to be a fun episode. I'm actually really looking forward to this. I'm always looking forward to the episodes, obviously. I love doing this. But I'm really looking forward to today's because I like interacting with the rest of the Pistons community and others who cover the team and others who write about the team. I really like interacting with it. And today I'm recording this on the 26th. We got an article from James Edwards III and Sam Vecini for The Athletic talking about the Detroit Pistons. Then we had an article the other day dropped by Sean Corp, the editor at Detroit Bad Boys. And it had some, it caused a little bit of stuff, a lot of arguing and back and forth. I just want to give my response to both articles. So we're going to start with James Edwards' article with the of The Athletic. In this article, it was James and Sam Vecini talking about the Detroit Pistons. They were really talking about what the Pistons should do this upcoming season. Briefly spoke about this past season, but really was just talking about what should the Pistons do this offseason. Should they trade some of their young guys? Should they not? And I think the biggest takeaway from and I like, before I go any further into it, I like getting an outsider's perspective. I like getting an outsider's point of view on the Pistons because a lot of times people's perspective on the Pistons from within Detroit is clouded with fandom. A lot of times it's clouded with bias. Like getting people's outside perspective on the Detroit Pistons and balance it out with the in-city, in-community opinions. You usually find level water there. But one of the main things that Sam said that I think absolutely right off the bat, I completely agree with. I think he hit the nail on the head with is, where is it? I want to make sure I get the exact quote for it. Oh, right here. He says, quote, seriously, the only thing that matters for the Pistons this offseason should be putting Cunningham in a position to thrive. He's the only player on this roster who has genuinely proven that he is a significant long-term building block for the organization, end quote. That is 100% correct. All these other guys, whether you like Asar Thompson, I love Asar Thompson. I am extremely high on Asar. Whether you like Jane Ivey, whether you like Jalen Duren, if the new president of basketball operations came in and said, look, I think moving Asar Thompson for X player or X players or whatever makes this team better and helps Cade unleash into his full potential. Hey, look, I love Asar. I'd love to keep him on the team, but I'd pack his bags for him in that scenario. The only thing that matters for this team is Cade Cunningham at this point. You need to maximize whatever his potential is. And so far, you've done an absolutely terrible job at maximizing his potential. Now, the good thing is he flourished this past season without you trying to maximize it, without you doing a good job of maximizing. He still came out shining, which says great things about him. But just imagine if you could have a maximize or ideal roster around Cade Cunningham. That 100% is the big thing, is number one at the top of the board. And that's all that matters at this point. You have to put quality players and players that fit Cunningham, that fit Cade. That is the main goal. The next thing that Sam talks about, and he kind of attacks the how much, does I'm drawing a blank. Their top pick. I'm sorry. I just had a brain fart for a second. Their top pick. How much would their top pick value if the Pistons were to get the first pick in this upcoming draft? What would the value be like on the trade market? And it doesn't sound very encouraging. I'm not going to lie. Now, things can change from April 26th all the way till draft time. Like, things can change. And maybe there is, he doesn't know the thinking of every front office. So maybe there's a front office out there that values it pretty heavily. We'll see what happens. But I'm going to read some of the takeaways or some of the things he said he heard throughout the league. One of the quotes he says, one, I've informally asked evaluators this question throughout the season. I haven't really gotten a consensus. One evaluator, my God, went as far as to say that they felt the salary that his team would have to expend at the number one overall pick would be a significant risk and unlikely to actually return salary value. So basically what they're saying is the quality of the player you'd get at 1 isn't worth how much you'd be paying that guy at 1. So if that's the case, that's pretty damning. That's a pretty damning thing to say about a draft class. If literally just paying him his contract and number one overall pick is enough to make you stay away from that, that's pretty crazy to me. Another one, he says a couple of evaluators thought the pick would be in the range of what it would cost to acquire something in the ballpark of the number 4 or 5 overall pick in a normal draft. So basically, there's a few people that believe the first overall pick is really worthy of a 5th overall pick in like normal classes, which again, it doesn't sound very good for the Detroit Pistons. And then a couple more, he says, thought just outside the top 5 in terms of pick value was right. So what that says to me, one, that's really bad for the Pistons. I think they're going to want to try to package that top pick with, maybe an Ivy or maybe a Durham or maybe both of them or maybe alone. Like, I think it's very likely that they trade their pick. And the fact that the one time that they're finally ready to move on a pick or try cash in on some assets that, this asset is a trash one, basically. Not trash one. Let me not call it trash because number 5 overall pick is still like worthy of something, but it's not going to be nowhere near what a normal number 1 overall pick would be, worthy of, which is tough. That's tough to hear. However, James brings up the fact that the Pistons could be trying to go after or packaging Ivy and Durham with the number 1 overall pick. What would that get? And the biggest takeaway I got from what Vicini replied with that is, he talked about the Nets article or the Nets trade machine thing that James wrote about the other day when he talked about getting Mikal Bridges. And Sam said he doesn't even think that would be enough to get Mikal Bridges, which is pretty damning as well. If your players and your assets of Ivy, a 5th overall pick, Duran, a lottery pick, and then the number 1 overall pick in the draft is not enough to get Mikal Bridges, like not a superstar, not a guaranteed all-star, Mikal Bridges. If it's not enough for that, damn, like, I don't know, like, what is it enough for then? Because if it ain't worth for Mikal, I don't know what the hell you can actually get with it. So really what I just came away thinking from this article, my reactions to this article is hopefully I'm praying that Sam is completely off and that the people he's talking to all lied to him. Like, I'm praying that that's the case for Pistons fans because it just sounds like the Pistons assets are not good. Like, they're not that good. Like, people apparently, like, he didn't come outright and say it, but if that's how people view a potential package like that, that means the rest of the league does not view very highly or that highly of Jaden Ivey. Doesn't mean they view that highly of Jalen Duren. And they definitely don't view that highly, it seems like, on the number 1 overall pick. So if you can't even package those guys together to go get something legit, like, that's tough. Like, you're in a really tough position at that point, like, really bad. So I'm really hoping that's just incorrect. That's just a lie, and he's wrong, and he ends up, all this is off. And that I'm poking fun and saying, like, I'm not saying that he doesn't know his stuff. He obviously knows his stuff. But I'm just hoping that he's wrong in this case. Like, for the sake of the Pistons, if he's right, like, that's tough, man. That would, I don't know what. That's all the Pistons really got. Like, they're not going to package multiple first-round picks for somebody, like, unless it's like a superstar or borderline, guaranteed all-star kind of thing. I don't think they would do that for a guaranteed all-star, to be honest, at this point. So it's not like they're trying to do that much. I think the most that they would package is Ivy Duren in the first pick, and that's not enough to get Mikal Bridges. You ain't getting nothing then. Like, he's not even an all-star. He's not even a guaranteed all-star. Like, damn. Just damn. And then lastly, I'll end it off with this. One of the things that Sam mentioned in this article in response to James, he spoke about how he doesn't think that the Pistons are in a position to really make a jump next year versus what the other teams are doing. Like Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs, they're going to be better next year. Memphis, they're going to be a lot better next year when Shaq comes back. Charlotte, they're probably going to take a step forward, he believes, over with Brand Miller and LaMelo coming back healthy and whatever they do. All I know is responding to that, if the Pistons are not in the same group as those guys next year, like those teams, like not Memphis. Memphis will probably be like a contender, but like the other teams, if they're not in that room, there's going to be a problem. Like if the Pistons are a bottom 2-3 team again, like there's going to be issues. There's going to be some issues. And I really would hope that that's not the case. I don't want to see those issues arise. But like there will be issues if they're a bottom 3 team again. That cannot happen. They need to make moves that stop that from happening. They cannot be that bad again next year. You just cannot. You cannot. Which I think is a good segue into reacting to Sean Corp's article over at Detroit Bad Boys, where the title, I'll just give you guys the title and then we'll talk about when we come back. The title says, giving up on Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren could be the biggest mistake of Detroit's offseason. I'll give my reaction to that article when we come back. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capability to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drives and great escapes. The class exclusive Google built-in is always your updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of having to connect your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen information system. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. The 2024 Nissan Pathfinder has room up to 8 in expensive cargo capacity and advanced available 4x4 capability. With 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds towing, when adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com today. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Give online therapy a try at BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA and get on your way to being your best self. Sometimes we all need the opportunity to get something off of our chest. Whether it be big or small, certain things can really start to get to you, especially if you're letting a bunch of small things build up and build up and build up. It eventually becomes one big thing. It can really start to affect you. It's important to let those things out, especially to someone who's unbiased in your life. And if you're thinking about trying it out, and if you're thinking about giving therapy a try, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible, and suited to your schedule. And if you get an online therapist and you're not vibing with it, hey, you can switch online therapists just like that. Again, it's entirely online, designed to be flexible, and you are the main priority. Getting the best thing for you is the highest priority with BetterHelp. So visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA today. Again, that's BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. There's another great way to support the podcast. All right, so we're going to react to Sean Corp's article over at Detroit Bad Boys. Detroit Bad Boys, I'm sure a lot of you guys have known, if you guys are in the Pistons community, you guys read over there as part of SB Nation. Sean Corp is the editor over at Detroit Bad Boys. And like I said before we ended the last segment, he wrote an article saying, and the title, I should say, is Giving Up on Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren Could Be the Biggest Mistake of Detroit's Offseason. In the quick blurb that he had to explain the article before we really get into it was, everyone is quickly willing to sacrifice young players at the altar of a 40-win team, but the Pistons must focus on decisions. My goodness, I can't speak today. I don't know what's going on. I need a drink of water, actually. Hold on. It's too hot in here. Anyway, best for the franchise, not just the ones that saved them from embarrassment. So, right off the bat, and Sean, I'm cool with Sean. Like, I'm going back and forth with them right here. It's nothing personal. Like, we're cool. And like I said, I like reacting and going back and forth. Before I started this or was hired to do this podcast, I should say, like, and even like back in high school, like my main like motivation was I used to watch First Take every single day. And I always just wanted to like debate sports. That's all. Like, I'm loud. I'm very reactionary. I'm very aggressive, I guess, when I talk. So that's what I've wanted to do like since high school. So I like this kind of stuff. I like responding and debating about stuff. So it's nothing like serious. No one like freak out and take it like more than it is. But anyways, right off the bat, I do not agree like with this blurb right below the article or the title immediately, but I will get to that. But right off the bat, I don't agree with like the premise of this article. there's a few parts of the article I do want to highlight for you guys before I really get into my response to it. I encourage all of you guys to go read it for yourselves, so you guys get the full thing from top to bottom. You guys really understand where he was coming from. I'm not going to read this whole article for you guys. That's not fair to him and for people over at Detroit Bad Boys who do a lot of work. So again, you guys should go read it yourself. I'll link it in the comment section down below. But anyways, I just want to highlight a few things he says here. So one, he says that he believes Troy Weaver, 95% of the front office must go. I agree. Monty Williams, record, contract be damned, he says, should also go. I agree. Those things we agree on. But the idea of Pistons moving on from young players or trading young players is putting a cap on their ceiling, I completely disagree with. There's a part of this article right here. He says the Pistons are surely ripe for a makeover. Still, I'm puzzled why so many people are so convinced that the change necessitates. I don't know what's going on with me today. Them sacrificing just about every young asset not named Cade Cunningham to absolve the franchise of its past sins. Again, we're going to get through all of them before I respond to everything. But even right there, I don't necessarily agree that that's what people are saying. But we'll keep going. He also says that the Pistons are not going to be getting plus assets in a trade without giving up a lot in return. The latest iteration of this move is outlined by James Edwards. It's that Brooklyn Nets trade we were just talking about earlier. And I believe we also talked about in the last episode. And then he goes on to talk about what the Pistons, look like with Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren last year. Again, I'm trying not to use the whole article. You guys should go read it yourselves. But basically the whole premise of the article, I guess we can just summarize it here, is that the Pistons have a lot in cap space. They can go get average players, I think the exact word he used on Twitter was just a guy type players on the team and let them go that way and it'll be just as good as, whatever the alternative is. And that moving on from Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren would be a mistake. It could come back and bite you, all that kind of stuff. So I just want to give my response to that. So, and also at the end of it, he talks about, Cade Cunningham eventually asking out. He compares him to Anthony Davis, who lasted 3 years on his extension. I would say that it's not the same comparison at all, or same situation, because Anthony Davis was not dealing with the worst team in NBA history, potentially. He was not dealing with the worst season in franchise history. He wasn't the face of the worst record in NBA history, the worst losing streak in NBA history. He wasn't wasn't the number one overall pick, and the face of a franchise, the supposed to be franchise player who headlined the worst season in franchise history. That's not what Anthony Davis went through. It's completely different. So things change. That changes stuff. That's first. Second, with the idea of, and me and Son kind of tweeted at each other about this on Twitter as well, but the idea that trading Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren to get to a 40-win pace, to get to a 40-win team in the next 2 years is a bad thing. I completely reject that idea. Why this team has not won 40 games over the last 2 years combined. Why are Pistons fans scoffing at winning 42 games or 40 games? Why is the idea of winning 40 games being scoffed at? For the life of me, I don't understand that. The team hasn't even won 40 games the last 2 years combined. If the Pistons win 40 games next year or 2 years from now, that is a success. They just won 13 games this past year. That's where we're at. And that kind of improvement should be absolutely applauded. So that's one. I don't know why 40 wins is something to scoff at. That's one. Two, the idea, and we talked about this in the last episode as well, I should say. I really, really, really disagree with the idea that trading, basically what I boiled this down to, we can talk about all the other stuff, but I really feel like it just leads down to this road at the end of the day. Basically what people like this are saying, people that agree with Sean, people are saying either the Pistons are going to win with Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren, or they're just going to blow it up and suck anyways. You're either going to win with Cade, Jalen Duren, and Jaden Ivey, or you're screwed anyways. It's either that way or no way. And I completely disagree with that as well. As I said in the last podcast, there are multiple editions of every NBA team in the league. You go back 3 years ago, it's a completely different edition of that team than probably what they are today. How many different versions of the Dallas Mavericks have we seen? How many different moves have they made around Luka? How many different type of rosters do they build around Luka? How many different moves have the Boston Celtics made? How many different moves have go through every league or every team? There's different versions of teams that get built as you move on into your team building process. So what this is all about, I feel like, Pistons fans are absolutely scarred from the Blake Griffin trade. And now anything that involves taking any kind of risk and being aggressive in any way, immediately, it's going to be Blake. You can't do it. No, I don't think anyone's really suggesting to go and trade for multiple 5-year contract players that are going to handicap your salary cap and then would put a cap on your ceiling because you can't do nothing over those 5 years because everything's tied up. The reason why the Blake Griffin trade screwed the Pistons, or I won't even say screwed the Pistons, the reason why it didn't work out for the Pistons, I should say, is because they had Blake, Andre, and Reggie making damn near max contracts. So once you have those 3 guys as your main guys making max contracts for multiple years, it's not like they're becoming expirings anytime soon. They were on multiple years. You can't really improve around them. You're signing vet minimum guys around that. No one's suggesting the Pistons do that. And like I said in the last episode, if the Pistons were to go out and acquire guys on 2 to 3 year contracts, and the goal for those 2 years is, hey, this guy is going to help us turn this culture around. This guy is going to help us reach the next step of this team building process. Because believe it or not, the Pistons are not going to go straight from 17 wins to all of a sudden a championship contender. You have to make those steps. Eventually, the Pistons are going to have to win 35 games. Eventually, the Pistons will have to be the 40-win team, the 42-win team. Like, they're not going to just skip over that. Like, you're going to have to hit those parts of the team building process. And heck, during the team building process, you may win 42 wins back-to-back years at one point. That may happen. I don't understand why people think you just get to skip from 30 wins. Oh, we don't want to be 40 wins. Let's go from 30 to 50. That's not what's going to happen. You have to take those steps. I completely reject the idea that trading Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren immediately cap your ceiling. Will it cap your ceiling potentially in the next 2 to 3 years at like 40, 42 wins? Maybe. Maybe that would be the case. But why is that bad? They just won 14 games. If you told me the Pistons win 40 wins or win 40 games in 2 years, they're 40 and 42. I'd say, okay, they're on the course. The next year after that, make moves and try to make a new team that takes the next step. And the reason why I say that, to go back to what I was mentioning about the 2 to 3 year contract players, is that if you avoid taking on big deals, long-term contracts, and like handicapping yourself, you can do that. In 2 years, 3 years, you can then make a new version of the team. I don't understand why everyone's acting like if the Pistons make moves this offseason, now, your trade machine is turned off from now on. For the next 5 years, your trade machine is turned off. Your free agency is turned off. You're no longer allowed to do anything. You make moves this offseason, that's all the moves you get. You ran out of moves, it's over. You don't get to make nothing else. That doesn't make any sense. I don't get this. That's where I completely disagree with this. So yeah, I guess to go back to the main point or the title of this article, which is giving up on Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren could be the biggest mistake with the Pistons offseason. Could Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey become good players in like 4 to 5 years? Yes, actually, I would bet on it. I would wholeheartedly bet that in 4 to 5 yeyears, those guys will probably be really good players. I believe more so in Duren becoming a really good player, but I won't be shocked if Jaden Ivey also is in like 4 years. That wouldn't shock me at all. But the Pistons don't have that time, one. And two, it's not, if they do become good players, Pistons fans shouldn't care as long as they're part of the trade or whoever they bring in, that plan works out. If the Pistons trade Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren and they become good, but the players that the Pistons brought in helped Cade, which is, I guess I really should have started off with this. The players you're bringing in, if they help Cade reach his max potential, you already won. You've already won the trade in your eyes. You've already won. It's over. You've already won the trade. Because whatever the Pistons are doing this offseason is to help Cade reach that next step. And that's whatever happens with Ivy, Duren, Asar, any of the young guys, what's going to take the Pistons to the next step is how far is Cade going to go? How great can Cade be? And if you trade those guys for players that, let's say, helps Cade take the Ja Morant type leap next year, if that's what happens, I don't care what Jaden Ivey becomes in 4 years. I don't care what Jalen Duren becomes in 4 years because you've achieved what you need. And then if you just make those deals and you keep your future flexible to where you're not giving up 5 future first-round picks, you still have those in the tuck. And if you only are acquiring guys on 2 to 3 year contracts to where in 2 to 3 years, you then will have cap space again, or you'll have guys in the final year of their deal in 2 years or 3 years from now to be able to move those guys and move them around along with picks, you can make a new version of the team at that point to take the next step. So I hope you guys understand what I'm saying. That's my rebuttal to this. I don't understand why everyone believes or people believe that if the Pistons trade Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren, you've done capped your ceiling for the next 8 years at 40 wins. Why? Why is that the case? That doesn't make any sense. You can make new versions of the team. You don't have a limit on how many moves you can make. That doesn't make any sense to me. Oh, this is a long segment, but we have to wrap it up with this. This is my last point. Because me and Sean went back and forth a little bit on Twitter about this. And one of his responses to me, he said, I'm drawing. I should have just had the tweet right in front of me. But the main thing he basically was saying is that these guys' value is not good right now. Like, these guys' value is not at the point where you want it to be to move on from them. That's basically what he was asking me. And when people ask that question, like, oh, well, their value is bad right now, don't move them, wait for them to get higher. Really, what you're in that hypothetical, you're just assuming. The assumption is, oh, next year their value will be higher. They'll be really good next year. Oh, the assumption is, oh, they'll be really good players in a few years, or their value will be significantly higher next year. Why is that an assumption? Why would I buy that assumption? Like, if you can tell me with a 100% guess, or 100% fact, I should say, that, hey, Jaden Ivey's value will be higher in December next year, way higher. You could trade him for crazy stuff. Jalen Durant, you can trade him for crazy stuff in December. If you can guarantee me that, okay. But what are we building that assumption off of? Why would we assume that? And again, I think it really boils back down to the whole core of this argument, the back and forth that's going to happen throughout this offseason in the Pistons community. It's already starting right here on the podcast. The back and forth that's going to keep happening is really going to boil down to, how do you feel about Jaden Ivey and Jalen Durant as actual players right now? Me, I don't think they're good players right now. I do not think they're good NBA players. And I'm skeptical of how quickly they're going to become good NBA players. So right now, the biggest part of their value, in my opinion, is the mystique of them, the idea of them being a second-year player, them still being technically prospects, being extremely young, another team looking at them and being able to say, hey, they're only 2 years in. I see the potential. I loved them as a prospect just 2 years ago. I think if I get them, I can craft them into what I want. Like, they can really take off. That is what I think is carrying their value and what you're going to have to capitalize on. Because I think it's more likely, what I think is more likely a year from now, if you wait, is their value stays where it's at right now. Teams get another year of seeing them. They don't get much better. They show that they're basically what their ceiling is going to be. And now teams are like, well, I don't have that mystique no more. I no longer think that I have they're just prospects. I can make them what I believe they were like 2 years ago. No, now you're a year removed from that. And now they've lost that mystique. And now their value goes lower. That's the chance you're taking. And I'm not willing to take that chance, I believe. So if the Pistons are in the ball camp or in the ballpark of, hey, let's move these guys right now, I'm with it. Yes, their value probably isn't great right now, but I also don't believe they're going to build that value crazy back up. I think what's carrying their value is the mystique of them as prospects. You wait a year, that mystique goes away. No, it just goes away. So that's where I stand on it. That was a very long segment. It is what it is. I was kind of all over the place with that, but I think I stayed within the ballpark. I just had a lot of things I had to say in different angles I want to go at it with. But again, let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter how you guys feel about that. Go read Sean's article before you guys even give my reaction or reaction to what I said. I want you guys to see both sides, and then let me know how you guys feel. So again, I'll link it down below for you guys to check it out. When we come back, though, the Lakers are about to get swept. Get the brooms out. And it looks like D'Angelo Russell is going to be out of LA. Should the Detroit Pistons be interested in D'Angelo Russell? We'll talk about that when we come back. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else. Even those who aren't actively searching for a new job might even be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses are using LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. That's another great way to support the podcast. So since I went really long on this last segment, I apologize. This one won't be a very long one. We got to wrap it up. So the Lakers are about to get swept. D'Angelo Russell report says it's probably going to decline his player option to enter free agency and get the hell out of LA. Makes sense for him. Makes sense for the Lakers too. So should the Pistons be interested in D'Angelo Russell? My answer would be maybe. If they've got him, I'd get it. I'd be fine with it. Like, I think basically this is probably going to be my response to just about everybody the Pistons get linked to or everybody the Pistons could potentially get. I am cool with getting anybody that will help the team as long as it's not on a long-term contract. Like I said in the last segment, I think the Pistons' motivation, their biggest priority should be building a good team for next year and the next year after that. Like in the next 2 to 3 years, you want to build a team that can be successful relative to expectations over the next 2 to 3 years. That can gradually get better. Like a team that can go from like 30 wins to 35 wins and then the 40. Like that's what the team you need to build to get. So with the cap space the Pistons have, if they want to overpay for guys on two-year contracts, 3-year contracts, I'm all for it. Now, if you start trying to give guys 4-year contracts and really 3 years, I'm a little bit, that's even extending it too far a little bit for me. But if you start looking at 4 or 5-year contract, I'm out. I don't want any long-term commitment like that because I want to be able to have the flexibility to create a new version of the team and add and subtract pieces as we go along. Like, that's where I want. So if the Pistons were to sign D'Angelo Russell, let's just say to like a 2-year, $30 million contract or a 2-year, $35 million contract. Like if they were to do something like that, or I don't know what exactly his ballpark's going to be, but you guys get it. I'm saying like overpay him for 2 years and then allow him to re-enter free agency. And that, again, the idea is during those 2 years, hey, D'Angelo Russell, you're going to space the floor next to Cade. You can take the ball out of Cade's hands a little bit, help him out, and the team will be better with you. The team's not going to enter championship contending, but again, that's not the goal within the next 2 to 3 years. I want to make that, again, very clear. Just because a guy comes to the team on the team for 2 years and he's not going to take you to Golden State levels, that doesn't mean, oh, he's just worthless. Like, again, there's levels here. Let's take steps. D'Angelo Russell, I think, would help. He shot 41% from 3 on 7.5 attempts, 45% from the field. You look at his synergy chart. He had 489 possessions as a pick-and-roll ball handler, 63rd percentile. Pretty damn good. 302 possessions as a spot-up shooter, 87th percentile. Pretty damn good. In transition, 252 possessions, 66th percentile. Pretty damn good. 80 possessions, not a big sample. In isolation, 71st percentile. That's pretty damn good. As a catch and shooter, 85th percentile. Pretty damn good. Off the dribble, 79th percentile. Pretty damn good. Around the rim, layups, 75th percentile. Pretty damn good. Like, D'Angelo Russell's a really good player. Really good offensive player. Is he going to be a superstar in the playoffs? Could he melt down in the playoffs? Yeah. But again, the Pistons are not the Pistons are just won 14 games. They don't need to be worried about championship, what would happen in the Eastern Conference Finals. If you're going to show up in the Eastern Conference Finals, they don't need to be concerned about that because they're not anywhere near that. Let's just take those steps. Would D'Angelo Russell help those steps? I think so. So if they brought him in, I'd be cool with it. Just, again, not long-term contract. Keep it flexible. Pay him for 2 years and let him get back in the free agency market. Thank you for your services. There you go. Like, I'd be cool with that. Just about anybody that's a good player that fits next to Cade that can shoot, like, I'd be cool with it as long as it's on those kind of terms. So that's my reaction to that. Thank you guys for listening to today's episode. That's all I've got. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. I'm having a rough day on the podcast, man. I gotta go take a shower and take a nap, man. Leave a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. My goodness, man. We gotta wrap this up. Hit that subscribe button at the YouTube channel, Locked On Pistons. I'm out of here, man. Stay safe out there. Peace out.